He's an introvert, interviewing strangers from the internet, knocking down the walls of his comfort zone, one conversation at a time. This is the Gary Cantrell Podcast.
The Gary Cantrell Podcast, June the 10th, 2020. What's going on, everybody? Come on in, sit down. I'm so glad that you're here, and I know my guest today, Shelby, will be very glad that you're here at Subtracting Shelby. You know what you should do right now? You should open up your phone, open up Instagram. A lot of you, I feel like, probably already follow her, but if you don't, at Subtracting Shelby, pull up her story, look at some of the pictures, see the captions. She's dropping some fire, folks, and so you should hear what she's got to say. Before we get to her, though, I want to tell you about my Patreon podcast producers, Caitlin at Caitlin Elise, put 3 Y's in her name, 3 times is awesome, Vanessa at Vanessa Ray's Journey, and Amanda at Mutts_and_Miles. Amazing people helping out this show, supporting a small creator like me. And if you want to join that club, patreon.com/Gary Cantrell. Check it out. You're going to get access to this show 5 days before everybody else, a private RSS feed, 25% discount at the Hard Work Always Wins merch store, and much, much more. Check it out if you can. If not, that's cool too, but patreon.com/Gary Cantrell. All right, let's go ahead and get Shelby on. I got to tell you, I'm so freaking excited to talk to her. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get her on. Here we go. Shelby.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing all right. It's, what day is it? I'm losing track of my days. It's Wednesday, right?
It is. Same.
Yeah. Well, how are you? I guess we'll start out with this. Whenever I call somebody, the podcast is recording because I like to just get the natural conversation from start to finish. But I have to ask right off the gate, like, how are you dealing with all this virus and lockdowns and all this stuff? How's life treating you these days?
Oh, it has been an adjustment. I just switched over to remote work. I think I'm on week 3 now.
Yeah.
So just not leaving the house and really focusing on trying to keep some sort of routine. It's been really difficult.
I could imagine. What, you don't have to say where you work, but what kind of industry do you work in?
I work in public relations. So
Okay.
I do a lot of outreach stuff, which has obviously been put on hold. And so I've been focusing more on, developing newsletter content and social media campaigns. And, I do work with the State Department of Transportation. So it's funny, while everyone else seems to be pausing and slowing down, we are kind of ramping up. So I've been really busy with work.
Well, that's cool. How long have you been in that line of work?
About 5-6 years now. I've been at my job here where I work now since September. But been working in this industry since I graduated college about 6 years ago.
Cool. And was that kind of the line of work you wanted to get into?
Oh, absolutely. I've always wanted to do communications. That's what I did. I got both my degrees in, and kind of wasn't anticipating being so passionate about transportation. I like to do work on promoting biking, walking, using public transportation, things like that. So I actually lucked out coming across that in my internship, and I've kind of stuck to that field ever since.
Well, I think that's great. I mean, they say that when you do work that you love, it's almost like you're not working. Do you get that vibe? Oh,
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've worked places and done different projects that I didn't, I wasn't that passionate about. And, it was okay work. But definitely if you can get behind what you're doing, it makes it that much better.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Now, you're down in Florida, right?
Yes. Yeah. I live in Central Florida, near the Orlando area.
Okay, cool. I've been down there a couple times. Is that where you were born and raised?
Kind of. I grew up in Cocoa, so about an hour east of Orlando, near Cape Canaveral, where they launched the space shuttles.
Yeah.
So that's where I grew up, and then I spent about 7 years in Pensacola for college before I came back down here.
But definitely, in general, Florida.
Yeah. I've been in Florida my whole life.
Cool. How do you like it down there in Florida?
I am a born and raised Florida girl, love the beaches, but I really really hope to move north one day.
Really?
I really, and people tell me I'm crazy and they say, oh, you've never, you don't know what you're talking about. But I cannot stand the heat. And I even thought that after losing a bunch of weight, I would like it a little bit more, but it's too hot down here. I can't stand it. Even the panhandle was a little bit better. I think it was easier to manage, but, no, down here in central South Florida, it gets so hot you can't even breathe when you walk outside. So,
Yeah.
but there are perks. There are perks for sure.
Well, yeah, because you always hear like people. I'm sure you've come across people that like they don't live in Florida. They're like, oh my god, I would kill to live in Florida. Like I want to go down there and vacation a bunch. Like I would imagine you could probably understand where the hype comes from at least.
Oh, absolutely. I don't discount the fact that, other than right now, if I want to head to the beach and hit up a, tiki bar and grab a pina colada and soak up the sun, I can do that, really whenever I want to. But there's also the fact that 90% of the year I sweat to death just going outside. There's times going to the beach is just too hot. I can't even sit out there. And the fact that there's no balance of that. It's just really hot all the time. And my husband and I love to vacation in the winter specifically so we can go to places where there's mountains and snow and, just colder climates because we have to get away from the heat.
Yeah, you've got to experience the cold at least a little bit. Like I live in the Northern Virginia area, which is just outside of DC, and I will say that, when we get the problem with our summer is that the humidity is just so high. So, we might only hit 85, maybe 90, which is, it sounds like a lot, but it's not. But when you get the humidity in there, it makes it feel like it's north of 100 and it'll just drive you crazy.
Oh, yeah.
So
it really does. It's so hot. There's the funniest meme that always goes around Facebook, and it's something along the lines of there's no hotter place on earth than when you step out of the Orlando International Airport because that humidity just hits you like a sheet. It's just, it feels like you're walking underwater. That's what we joke about. And I don't think you get used to it. It's just the way it is down here. That electric bill is always up come April.
Oh, I could imagine. I will tell you this, my wife and we have family down in South Carolina in the Charleston area. And, it gets hot down there too, but it feels like it's a little bit more tolerable because, maybe the humidity is not always quite as crazy. They have their bad days, obviously, but it seems like the heat is managed a little bit better over there. I don't know if you ever made it over there, but it's a beautiful city.
I haven't. I've heard great things about Charleston. I actually have a friend who talks about there, and she wanted to move there at one point. But now she lives up actually where you are. So
okay,
I've heard great things about the Carolinas. So I've always wanted to go visit, but I just try to flee as far north as I can when I actually do go somewhere.
Well, yeah, understandable, especially if you're trying to get up into the cold climate. What is your favorite spot to vacation to when you're coming up north?
Well, we've done New York a few times. We've done Chicago a few times. I definitely think Chicago is our go-to spot. It's not as wild as New York. We get to New York. We went for Christmas this past year and spent some time in New York, and wow, it was so crazy. I could not imagine living there. And yeah, but we just a couple weeks prior we're in Chicago, and wow, what a great place. We had such a good time, and we even did a weight loss meetup there in that area, and the people were just amazing too. They're just so much more friendly, and we love Chicago. We would go there every single year. We would up and move there, if the stars aligned, I think.
That is one place that I've never been. I've done New York a bunch of times and I like it. Yeah, it's crazy just like you said, but I can do it like maybe once a year, maybe. But Chicago, I've never gone. It's definitely on the bucket list for sure.
Yeah, we've been twice, and it's not a huge city when you think about these other large metros, but man, we've gone twice, and I don't think we've even scraped the surface. We have such a good time there, and even though it is cold, it's just beautiful. It's just a beautiful city, and just so much going on, and I like the environment, the atmosphere there.
Yeah,
you got to go.
Believe me, it's the funny thing about it is we were talking about this virus and stuff at the beginning of the call, and I did a podcast at the beginning of the year where I kind of outlined some goals, and Chicago was definitely on one of those travel goals. I think I said like Chicago, San Francisco, Boston, stuff like that. These are places I've not been, but Chicago has definitely always been at the top of that list. I have friends in Chicago, and I was hoping this year, but it seems like, I mean, based on how things are going, and I want to be optimistic. We're recording this in let's see, the end of April, and this will be out sometime in June. So I'm hoping by June we're going to be in a better spot. But I will say that it feels like, for anybody like us that, we make goals and we're trying to stick to the goals. It seems like a lot of the longer term stuff or travel based goals might be out the window for a good portion of this year.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because I work specifically with a demographic of older adults, and so like my whole rest of the year is a wash when it comes to work. And the conversations we're having are, even if things progress forward, get a little bit better, until they have a cure, or at least some sort of vaccine, there's just no way that, we may be able to go out and do more things. Some things may be unlocked, but, it doesn't mean we're all going to be wanting to travel and we're going to be wanting to put ourselves in risky situations for no reason, as things progress. So I'm right there with you. I feel like my 2020 travel goals are probably for now on pause for sure. But again, one of the perks living in Florida, I can at least hopefully make it over to the beach. I had birthday plans. My birthday was the beginning of this month, and we had plans in Clearwater Beach for kind of a weekend getaway. And I pushed them to the end of June, rescheduled them, and I'm fingers crossing that the beach will be open at the very least. I can hit the sand.
I hope so. Have you been over to Clearwater? It's really nice over there.
Oh, yes. I love it over there. We did it last year. When I moved up to Pensacola and I was up there for so long, I got really invested in that Gulf water versus the Atlantic, which is where I grew up. And we live kind of central. Most people will go to Cocoa Beach because it's closer, but I'm like, no, 2.5 hours is well worth it. Get to the Gulf. So for anybody that comes down here, go to the Gulf. It's much nicer. Beautiful beaches.
The funny thing about that is I'm so used to the Atlantic myself, going to like Ocean City, Maryland, or even Charleston. And when my wife and I went to Clearwater for the first time, this would have been I think 2011. We were just blown away at just how different that beach was from any other beach we'd ever seen in our life. I mean, they say Clearwater, it lives up to the name, and it's a different feeling when you go to that beach.
Oh, absolutely. It's gorgeous over there. So that's what I'm hoping at the very least. Like I said, we might have a real weird normal for a while, but hopefully at least the beaches will be open. Though I know they're opening them right now. I'm not trying to go out there quite yet.
We might want to wait on that just a little bit, despite whatever the rules are as of the moment. But you know what? Here's the thing. Like I said, this will be out sometime in June. I hope, and this is just optimistic, #optimistic Gary. I'm hoping that by the time this podcast comes out, all this will sound like crazy talk and we'll be back to some semblance of what we think is normal and all will be well. I know that might be wishful thinking, but I am going to be thinking as positive as possible to not go insane.
No, yeah, I'm right there with you, Gary. I'm sitting there telling everybody, by then hopefully we'll be good. And I've been calling it realistic optimism. I'm not living in a false world that thinking that everything is going to be perfect, but I'm hoping that it'll be there and we'll be where we need to be.
Definitely. Tell me a little bit about your childhood and stuff. How did all that go for you?
It was hectic. I had a little bit of a wild childhood. I grew up with my biological mom, her husband, and an older brother, and kind of a really weird dynamic for many years of my life. She actually moved out of state when I was about 15, 16, and I spent some time hopping between homes of friends because I didn't want to go with her.
Right.
Before eventually settling into what I call my family now, and then leaving for college. But definitely a little bit of a hectic childhood. I love to stay busy. So I did a ton of just crazy things. I did, all the bowls and the bees. I did lots of sports, lots of clubs, TV production, and anything I could get my hands in, I was doing. So, but I did grow up there and then head off to college at University of West Florida. Right after high school, never really looked back.
Yeah, right on. And so the weight, I mean, when does that become like an issue? Were you kind of heavier in your childhood, or did it come later?
Oh, my childhood definitely was just riddled with obesity. So my, background on that, my family is very much obese. A lot of them are. Both of my parents are obese. My grandparents both struggle with weight as well. So definitely, I was always the bigger child. I have photos of me just being a kid, and I was just always the biggest one. I remember, very early on dieting, trying to lose weight. My first real crash fad diet, whatever you want to call it, I think started the summer before seventh grade. I did a slim fast diet. And so I was drinking at, 11 or 12 years old, 2 shakes a day with a small meal, for dinner. And
yeah, that's, it's kind of crazy when you think about it too. Like, I remember, I think it was a couple of years older, maybe 15, 16, where I first, tried out the slim fast. And it's kind of crazy when you think about it at such a young age to be on something like that, or, that we thought might actually help us.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, 11 years old doing slim fast. I remember in middle school, I think my best friend and I tried to do a grapefruit diet where we just drank grapefruit juice all the time,
right?
Until we got caught and got doing crazy things at such a young age. And so there were days where I didn't eat. I was trying to starve myself to lose weight. Just such a toxic environment for someone so young. I just was dying to lose weight. Even as long as I can remember, really.
Right. Yeah. It's just crazy. Cause when you think about it, it's just like, at such a young age, we're like, oh my God, we don't know what's going on. And we're trying to get it off. And so there's all these products and all these things that come up and, we think that maybe these things are the answer. And when we get older, we find out that, there's a lot of other, more, healthier ways to go about it to lose the weight.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And, for me, my biggest issue was that I lived in a very low income home, did not have access to, nutritional foods. And I was just raised in thinking that, every meal was a meat, a starch, and a vegetable. And even then, they weren't healthy items. It might be some ground beef type, not lean, nothing lean for sure, protein wise. My starch consisted of those like dollar packets of noodles that you add rice and butter to and cook on the stove, and
right.
then, or maybe some instant mashed potatoes, and then a vegetable. I mean, I'll tell you what, I don't think I had anything but canned vegetables for probably the first 17 years of my life. And it was a can of vegetables drained, and then that country crock in the pot melted on the stove. That was my meal. So you're talking slim fast. I had 2 shakes and then a meal like that. So even that wasn't a healthy meal. And that's how I learned to cook. That's the food I learned to prepare. I was already kind of set up for failure, I think, just because that's how we grew up.
Yeah, well, I think, we kind of get in these habits, and it's like, especially when you're at that age and that's kind of becomes, what is normal to you. I think that it's very understandable for, these kind of things to happen where, you're kind of in this like habit, this routine. And, if that's what your situation is, if that's what you got, you think, okay, I'm going to run with it. And you just try your best and try to make the best of the situation.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly it. And you just don't know any better. I remember cooking dinner for my roommate and my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, when we moved out. And I went to make instant potatoes and grab those at the store, and they're like, "Oh, we don't eat instant potatoes." And I'm like, "I've never had real ones, real mashed potatoes."
Yeah.
So it's just how how you're raised and how this is the norm for you, and you don't know any better. And that was kind of a real hurdle for me, was relearning what a healthy meal was, not just of the food, but of even portion size.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I could tell you probably 20 years ago, I'm going to show my age here, but 20 years ago, I remember when I worked for retail, I was working for a pharmacy, and they had, at the time, there was these Stacker 2 pills where you would take them and they gave you all this energy, and you could burn fat quickly and all this kind of stuff. And I remember I used to take these things, and they used to have these awful side effects on me, but I thought that was the way. And then you just go home, and in my situation, it was like, my parents, they try to make, somewhat healthy meals, but of course I would have my little side, chips and candy and stuff. And so you kind of go with what you're accustomed to, and you think that that's the right way to go.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly it. And always looking for the thing that's going to give you the leg up to finally lose the weight. But I will say that none of it ever worked. All the crazy things I tried doing at such a young age, they definitely didn't work.
No, definitely not. They never do. We think they will, or, I think a lot of times people, they get excited to buy stuff because they think that is what's going to help, whether that's the pills or the shakes or all these, the magic pills that we hear about on Instagram, especially. I'm sure your DMs probably get lit up with those people saying, hey, come and try this, and all this other. I mean, it's amazing just how much misinformation is out there. And for somebody like you that's lost the weight that you have, I mean, it's just kind of crazy when you see all these messages out there, and you think about the people that are online, and there are people that they see these advertisements for these things, and they get, they kind of get lured in because it looks very attractive. It's a bunch of fancy, nice dreams to potentially have, and people get lured into this stuff.
They really do. And especially with the pills and the shakes and all the different supplements. I mean, I know it feels like I don't know if it's a New Year thing or what, but I swear just the past couple months, so many people I know have, jumped on board with the pills and the shakes and the wraps and so on. And, they're like, I'm losing weight. And you can clearly see that, they've got a little something going on, and I'm proud of them. But I always wonder, are those mutually exclusive events? Are you also, are you living the lifestyle you were living before you started taking the pills or whatever it may be?
Right.
And you haven't done any change? Or is it that you're feeling better and doing better because you're also eating better, or you're working out, or, and you would probably have those results either way. You don't need the whatever it is that you're taking or supplementing to make you feel that way. It's just the changes you're making in your life that are doing that for you.
Definitely. I saw a person online that I had been following their journey for quite some time, and they did a lot of, I saw all their posts at the gym, and from everything I could tell, everything was natural right down the middle. And then all of a sudden they were starting to sell this tea or something. And I was just like, and then they had like this side by side, like, this is what happened after I drank this tea. And I said, oh my God, why are you doing this? Because like, I know that you lost it naturally. And I mean, I want to say this had to have been like, if not 100 pounds, damn near 100 pounds. And then to put one of those little stickers on the bottom that said, I took the tea and these were the results. I just had to shake my head. But, I don't, I blame the person, because it's their choice to post that, but it's also these predatory companies that are like, hey, look, I'm going to give you all this money if you can sell some product. And also if you can get people to join the program and also sell the product, because it's not even just so much of people selling the product to the consumer. It's also people selling other people on becoming salespeople and trying to sign up people. And I'm just like, this has got to be like $1 billion industry.
Oh yeah, it definitely is. And you say that, you bring up that example, and I'm right there with you. I see it a lot as well. I've seen many people who I know are doing other things. I've seen people that are on prescription-based weight loss medication having great results, but they're also selling these kinds of products.
Yeah.
People who've done so many things. And it's just crazy to me because you're right. I think that there's so many ways to lose weight, whether it's weight loss surgery, whether it's, actually going out there and, just doing exercise and diet, making adjustments, just changing your diet, never going to the gym. I mean, there's so many different ways, but I hate that when people aren't honest about it, because to me, it makes it that much harder for the next person to lose the weight. Is if you're not honest about the strategies you're using. And there's so many people that reach out to me. I get messages all the time for people who are like, do you want to try this? Do you want to try this? Like, I haven't already lost the weight. I'm like, I don't need your magic weight loss pill. I'm good where I'm at. So,
Well,
it's crazy.
I think a lot of them, they don't even read people's pages. I think they're looking through the hashtags. They have like some sort of automated program, and they're searching the hashtags. But I definitely wanted to talk to you about this because I'm like, here's a lady that's lost an extraordinary amount of weight. I mean, you've done an incredible job, but even just as important as that, I love the message that you put out there in being authentic with your journey, because it shows people what is actually possible. And I like the way that you communicate that to the people that check out your page. I like that message, but I wanted to bring this also to light because I'm sure you had gotten those DMs from these people that are like, hey, try this, or hey, can you sell this for us, and all that stuff. And it's crazy the amount of people that are reaching out trying to sell all this wild stuff.
It's gross. And what's even worse, Gary, I've had to promote a couple of times on my stories. I've gotten requests from overseas surgery centers, telling to promote their surgery center, for travel tourism, and not travel tourism, sorry, medical tourism, and to have people, go to these other places and go have surgery there, and they wanted me to promote it as if I had surgery there, and it's crazy. You have to be careful and remember that, these are things that you're putting in your body too. And it's crazy. You really can't trust everything you see on the internet. That's for sure.
Definitely 100%. Now I know you did the surgery. I want to talk about that in a moment. But first tell me about kind of, the breaking point or the moment where it's like, okay, we got to turn the ship around. I mean, how high, I know, because I've been following your story, but for the people listening, how high of a weight did you reach? And at what point did you say, okay, enough is enough? Kind of talk me through kind of that moment and the decision to start to make a change.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, coming to the close of the year, I want to say it was 20, so I'm doing some math in my head here. I want to say towards the end of 20, would have been 2016.
Okay.
I could definitely tell I was packing on that holiday weight. Definitely well over 300 pounds, I knew. And January 22nd was my anniversary. My 1 year anniversary, and the city I'd always wanted to go see was Seattle.
Right.
And it was, my dream. I wanted to move there when I went to grad school. I mean, it was the city. And my husband and I booked that trip and decided to go for our 1 year anniversary, and we did. And while we had a wonderful time, I was in so much pain the entire trip. My body ached. We had to space out our walking, because if I walked more than a couple miles in a day, not just at a time,
right.
My ankles would swell, my back would be just inflamed. I was in so much pain that the whole rest of the trip would be ruined. And there was a moment in that trip where my husband likes to take pictures. He's a super amateur photographer, but he wanted to go to some park that he'd seen on Yelp that apparently had this beautiful view.
Right.
And we do like to use public transit wherever we go, because like I said earlier, I'm a big transit geek. But we ended up getting off towards the bottom of this really steep hill, which we don't have here in Florida. And I mean, I hesitate to say hill. It felt like a mountain, but it was a very steep incline. And we got off at the bottom of it, and it was at the top. And I was in tears walking up this hill. I'm talking just a regular sidewalk street that there were people out running with their dogs. And I couldn't even walk up the hill.
Yeah.
I started crying. I was obviously very upset. I don't mean to make light of this, but you see the episodes of My 600-Pound Life where these people just get so upset of these tiny things. Mm-hmm. I was there because that's how much pain you're in. That's how much embarrassment you feel. And it ultimately ruined our trip. I just told him to go and leave me, because I kept having to stop. I just couldn't make it. And when I finally made it up to the top, there were stairs leading to the actual park, and I couldn't get up them. I actually never made it to the park. And that was my breaking point. At that point, just the fact that my trip was not ruined, but really just brought to that level on something that was supposed to be a special trip for us, just because my weight had such an impact. So when I got back from that trip, I made an appointment with my primary, who thankfully does specialize in weight loss. And I got on the scale and saw that I had hit 411 pounds. And that was oh my gosh, I knew I was overweight. It's not a shock there, but to think that you topped 400 pounds is just shocking. I couldn't believe at 22 years old, that's where I was.
I get it.
It was crazy.
I've hit a similar number. I'm not too far from that number before I got started. And there's definitely, I think there's this mental thing. Maybe this is what it was like for you, but it's like, when you said just a moment ago, like, I knew I was bigger, but like, in our head, we're like, oh, maybe it's 275, maybe 320 tops, like, right. But when you actually see the number and it's like 4 or close to that, you're like, okay, I had no idea it was this.
Yeah. I think there's a really common question, and I was the same person. Don't get me wrong. The people will say things like, "How did you even get that big?" Or, how do you get to that point? And I'm like, it doesn't happen overnight, and
right.
You get there the same way that anybody gains weight. It's just a little bit by little over time, and all of a sudden, you make so many little sacrifices. I remember that I had shoes, with like strappy heels, and I would do my shoes. Well, over the years, there would be times where like I would put one on and lazily kick my foot back and ask Hugo, who's my husband, to do it, to do the little strap for me. Over the years, that just became the norm. He just did the straps, and it never, there wasn't a point where I was like, oh, I can't do this anymore. It just kind of gradually, because it was more comfortable, became that. And all of a sudden, I can't do my own shoe. Little things like that. You're making minor adjustments over time, and before you realize that you've completely changed your life in all of these little ways, just because you're so obese and you really don't know. You just don't. It happens so slowly that you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, this is where I am. So it's a wake up call.
Definitely. And I know you mentioned, obviously the pain during your anniversary and consulting with a doctor, but even before that, like, walk me through just like a regular day. I mean, are you getting up out of bed in pain and stuff like that? I mean, what was like an average day for you in that body at around 400 pounds?
I did work from home at that time. I worked remotely, and I would get up, I would eat. I didn't do really any sort of activity, just moving from one place in my apartment to the next. I was very lucky in that I didn't really have any health issues. I'm assuming because I'm so young and because I did do a lot of sports when I was growing up. So my body, I hadn't deteriorated it that much yet, but I did suffer from high blood pressure. I had constant headaches. I didn't sleep well. Like I would wake up and I had a lot of back pain, and I didn't sleep well at all, but thankfully no sleep apnea or anything like that. But I just wasn't mobile. And by the end of my workday, even though I just sat around the entire time, I was just so exhausted.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do anything. And it's funny because I was a very active person in terms of I wanted to go out and hike and bike and do all of these fun outdoor things. And I just couldn't do it. My body would not cooperate.
Yeah, that's the one thing you mentioned, not having a ton of, major health issues. It's like one of the things I think gets discounted a lot is, especially when we're bigger and maybe when we're starting out on the journey or just before, like we're so easy to dismiss our body and dismiss, how, if we get really crazy about it, like how much of a piece of crap we are, a fat ass or whatever. But it's like, man, our bodies are truly resilient and they have held us up through thick and through thin. And it's like, before you make this decision to get on like a journey or a diet or whatever you want to call it, it's like, you and your body are one, and you got to respect that body because ultimately it has held you up through the good times and the bad. And I think that, I think it just has to be said that we don't show enough respect necessarily to our bodies, and we're so just easy to dismiss it or talk crap about it. And, when people talk about, love yourself and talk positively and all that stuff, I think that's a real thing. It's not just some cute thing to throw on a meme. Like that's real stuff right there.
It really is. I mean, it held me. It held me through everything. I still have sometimes a little bit of back pain, and I still, I just sit there and I tell myself like, wow, this is the same body I had 200 pounds ago. And, it's got some wear and tear on it, but man, did it do the job. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I mean, I got knee problems still to this day, and I'm like, man, we'll get through this. We'll figure it out. But if it's like, if I could hang at 400, certainly at 3 where I'm at right now, like we could still hang, and I've got some more to go myself. But I know that no matter what, I'll figure it out. And so I think that folks that are listening, that maybe they don't think highly of themselves, they should definitely think more highly of their body, because it truly is a warrior, just like we are, mentally, but also physically.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So with that being said, you talk about, you come back from the anniversary and you're consulting with a doctor. Now I know you had the surgery, and this is a big decision to make. So how do you land on that decision? Is that a doctor saying, we think this is the best option? Did you try stuff prior to that? I mean, how do you land on that decision?
Well, I actually, because I mentioned earlier, my biological mom did have gastric bypass when I was about 10 years old. And she actually never made any sort of lifestyle change that I could see. Our foods didn't change. And I have kind of an inside scoop now because I did it myself. But looking back, I can tell that nothing was done differently. And I was actually absolutely terrified of weight loss surgery. I was very ignorant to how it worked and what came with it. And so I was adamant. I did not want weight loss surgery at all. So here I am, 411 pounds, sitting in front of my doctor, who I actually had a pretty good relationship with.
Yeah.
And he's telling me, first and foremost, I got to recommend, not even recommend. He definitely didn't recommend it. He just wanted to talk options. And so he did say, first and foremost, have you thought about weight loss surgery? Because you're definitely a candidate. I think my BMI was either 60 or 61, and I'm tall. I'm 5'10", so to be 5'10" and still have a BMI of 60, it was a lot. And I told him, no, I don't want this. I don't want weight loss surgery. It's awful. My mom would actually get sick after every meal, and not because there was something wrong, because there are complications people have where, especially early on, where they just can't hold down food.
Yeah.
But she just overate to the point that she got sick, and then she would go back and eat some more. And so I didn't want that to be my life. I didn't want to get sick at every meal. And instead of sharing that with my doctor, I just said, no, I don't want that. What's next? There are options. I know some people take Centerman, which you have to be approved with heart. Your heart, it does a lot of strain on your heart. And so I couldn't do that because my weight was so high. He said, even if your heart was strong enough to handle it for 6 months, you're not going to lose enough in 6 months to make it worth it,
right,
for you to even do that to your body. If you had to lose 50 pounds, maybe, but it's not enough. And so at that point, we settled on just good old, diet and exercise. He gave me a really strict diet regimen. Said, get out there, move your body 30 minutes every day, just walk. I know it's probably difficult, so just start with walking. And that's what I did for 2 months. I stuck to his diet plan and moving my body, and did lose a little over 20 pounds in that time.
Right. And so then at that point, then it's like, okay, now with the surgery, I know there's many different types of the weight loss surgery. There's a couple of different types. Which type did you have?
I had gastric bypass, or it's called the short RUNY, gastric bypass, RNY. You'll see sometimes, but it is the bypass where they actually give you a very small stomach, but they also reroute your intestines up to that stomach, and so it's got a little bit of different layers. I know the real popular one right now is sleeve, VSG, and that's another one. I think those are probably the two most common these days.
Right. And so I guess the one that you had, there's more benefit to that one, I guess.
There are. It's kind of a multi-pronged approach versus the sleeve. So with the sleeve, you're just kind of shaving off. Think of your stomach as a football, and then they turn it into a banana.
Right.
Nothing else really changes. They kind of take off that extra piece, especially if you've stretched it out. But with the bypass, you get the added benefit not only of having a smaller stomach, but they take out a piece of your stomach that gives you the feeling of hunger, and that there's like a hormone there or something like that, and so that ends up leaving, so you're not hungry as often or as much or really ever.
Right.
And then they also reroute your intestines so you don't absorb food as well. So even when I do eat, I'm not absorbing the nutrients, and not only the nutrients, but the bad things as well. I just don't absorb. Food goes through a lot more quickly now. And so you have that extra layer. So stats off the top of my head, they say that bypass patients lose approximately 70 to 80% of their excess body weight. So that's anything over your ideal, based on BMI.
Right.
Whereas sleeve VSG patients, they estimate between 50 to 60, excess, 60% loss of their excess weight. So you're definitely at a better odds with the bypass, but it is a much harder surgery, and I think more of a lifelong change for sure.
That's definitely something I wanted to ask you about, is in terms of like when you had it done. I mean, how long does that put you out for?
It actually wasn't long at all. You would be shocked. So at the time I was still working remotely. I had the surgery on a Thursday morning, and or it might have even been a Tuesday morning. All I know is I took about a week off. I was teaching a college class at the time as well. And I actually came back to class that next week, and taught my class.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, as long as I was off of the pain meds, I was good. I could drive, everything was good. The biggest hurdle in terms of, overcoming and healing wasn't necessarily the stitches and the actual healing part. It was the way your body responds to such a huge calorie deficit. Because I went from, I had a 2-week liquid diet prior to surgery.
Yes.
And then I had surgery and obviously was on a liquid diet after that as well. So it took me at least 2 months, if not longer, to be able to have a normal day where I wasn't so exhausted that I had to sleep or got fatigued at the grocery store. That was my biggest hurdle in terms of healing from the surgery.
Yeah, let's talk also about the mental game too, because I can imagine mentally, especially like a liquid diet, that's gotta kind of play with your mind a little bit. But talk a little bit about the mental aspect of that. That transformation, that transition, maybe is a better word, from kind of just your normal. I mean, because I would imagine before pre-weight loss surgery, I mean, how many calories do you think you were taking in on a day?
God, that liquid diet before surgery, that I think that is by far the hardest part of the entire thing. And it's something that most weight loss surgery patients have to do in some form.
Yeah.
But it's I'm 400 pounds and you're telling me I can't have food for 2 weeks. And I'm talking it was clear liquids, and I could have some protein shakes. So that was the hardest 2 weeks of my life. To be a 400-pound woman that's used to eating God knows how many calories a day. And then I'm on a liquid diet. So that was a really big struggle for me. I was exhausted. I had constant headaches. It was awful. But I did lose 22 pounds, not to promote that as a healthy weight loss. It was doctor monitored. And they do it to shrink your liver so
Right.
that when they go in there, it's not in the way. So that while it was difficult, I was terrified that I was going to wake up with a long scar down the middle of my stomach because they had to cut me open all the way because they couldn't get past my liver. So that was my motivator. Especially I think if you're a woman, that's probably enough of a deterrent for you. But even then, after the surgery, it was much easier, obviously, because again, they'd removed that thing that gave me the hunger to begin with. And it was more of a mental struggle. People are still eating. Life goes on. And you can't. Not only could I not eat solid food, I had surgery January 30th. My birthday is April 4th.
Right.
And the week of my birthday was the week that I transitioned back into a quote unquote normal diet. So that's how long of a healing process I had from going from liquid food to pureed food,
Right.
to soft food, to normal food. And again, life goes on. You're over here, your insides are completely scrambled and you can't eat more than 2 ounces at a time. And, your roommate's bringing home pizza and, it's your birthday and you can't have cake and ice cream. And, it's definitely a mental battle, but it's one that, early on you have to deal with. But, I will say that, being over 2 years out now, it definitely, it was well worth it, but you're not doing that anymore. I don't have that problem anymore. I get to enjoy everything with balance, which makes it better. But you do get to the other side.
Yeah, I think that's probably got to be the hardest hurdle is that mental aspect, because I mean, like you said, before this, you're eating God only knows how many calories, probably 3,000 plus, as anybody at that size. I know for me, it was definitely north of 3,000, had to be. But you think about that, and then it's just like, okay, they're like, okay, you have to go on this liquid diet. And then when you've had the surgery, it's like, okay, now that's not over. This is one of the biggest misconceptions that I think a lot of people get, is they think that, a weight loss surgery is like a cheat code. Like you think like a Mario game, it warps you to level 8 or something. And that's not it at all. Like you still got to put in the work, but not even just putting in the work, showing up to the gym, eating right. But there's also that mental aspect that you've got to wrap your head around, and that's making the change.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's plenty of people that do it and they do regain, or they don't, ever hit goal, or, get to a healthy weight. And you're absolutely right. There's so many people that think that is just the cheat. And I just chuckle because I tell them, regardless of whatever tool I'm using, I still have a huge calorie deficit. I went through a major surgery, and yeah, my struggles might not be the same as somebody that may have just went a pure diet and exercise route. But, I take, for example, my liquid diet before surgery. I lost 22 pounds on that because I didn't eat solid food for 2 weeks. Anybody could do that, and it's hard.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not, it's not healthy. I don't promote it at all. But when you think of it in comparison, you go down to a 300, 400 calorie a day diet, and you'll lose weight quickly too. It doesn't make it any easier in those aspects. It's still a struggle, and I still have to exercise. And being as far out as I am, I actually am dealing with a little bit of quarantine weight gain I've been posting about. I was up 10, 15 pounds, and I'm relatively normal in those aspects at this point in my weight loss journey. Is that I have the same struggles, and I have to make the same choices as everybody else when it comes to my health and getting myself moving and eating the right things.
Definitely. And you talk about a 300, 400 calorie liquid diet. Try that in the Florida heat also. I mean, my God, that's got to be crazy. I'm just thinking about that. Like, there's no freaking way.
There were a lot of sugar-free popsicles involved. I'll say that.
So those were allowed.
That were allowed. Those were very much allowed. Those sugar-free, fruit juice, whatever popsicles. They're not fruit juice because they wouldn't be sugar-free, but those are definitely a liquid diet staple for anybody doing weight loss surgery, especially here in Florida.
Yeah, I could imagine. So you get around to your birthday, you're starting to balance back in the normal food and stuff. When does the working out and stuff come in, and what was that transition like for you? Because, I mean, you talked about your anniversary and having all this trouble, going up the hills and everything. And so knowing all that, when you're going to the gym and now it's like, okay, I'm trying to work out and I'm trying to, get my body together. It's like, how hard was that for you initially while you're readjusting your body to this new lifestyle?
Mm-hmm. Well, they actually encourage you. The second you wake up from surgery, they're telling you to get up and walk. And every day after that, it's get out, walk, don't do anything crazy, but walk. And then it's 6 weeks out from surgery where they kind of give you the green light to start really doing whatever you want to. And again, it goes back to not necessarily even the healing of the body, but the fact that I just did not have the extra calories to burn. And so I know I tried to do the gym a few times. I want to say end of January with surgery. I think maybe by March I was trying to, get in and get on the treadmill, do a little light weightlifting. But when you drop all of that weight so quickly, I want to say I lost probably 100 pounds in that first. It was definitely over 100 pounds in the first 6 months,
Wow.
including the liquid diet. When you drop all that, it's not just that. You're losing just about everything. So, I went to the gym and I was just so exhausted from doing the bare minimum, and also terrified I was going to hurt myself. But I was able to, for the first time after a while, get on like a Planet Fitness treadmill without making the belt move. I don't know if you've ever experienced that. It's not a good time
No.
when you exceed the weight limit on the treadmill. But I was just able to move so much easier. Going up and down the stairs. I had stairs in my apartment at the time. That was just, it was just, again, you don't realize how much you've adjusted your life to accommodate your obesity until you go back and you're like, oh my gosh, I started being able to shave my legs, in a normal way. And it's just little things like that. But, definitely in the gym, I started transitioning back into the gym probably around May or June, actually going on a more regular basis.
Right.
And, trying to build back some muscle in a healthy way. But I really had absolutely no idea what I was doing.
Yeah, and I would imagine, when you lose that amount of weight, you're going to be dealing with some loose skin. I'm assuming you've had issues with that, and how do you process that? Because that's also can be definitely a mental struggle for a lot of people. They're like, hey, I lost all this weight. Now I got all this extra skin. Like, how do you deal with that?
It is hard. I'm lucky, and it's very frustrating. I get comments on Instagram all the time. Everyone wants to say that, oh, it's not that bad. Yours isn't that bad. Mine's worse, and make the comparison. But I do have a lot of loose skin, just about everywhere. And it luckily doesn't hinder me too much in terms of, movement and workouts, but I get a nice, side, under my arm clap when I do certain things,
Right.
Which is always very encouraging at the gym. I do struggle with it hurting on my back sometimes. Like if I try to do any sort of running or things like that, I get the pull from the lower stomach skin. And just mentally, it's very difficult to be in a size. I think I'm down to a size 12 or a 10 now, but physically I could probably get into an 8 if I didn't have the skin. To want to wear like a nice form-fitting dress to show, your hard work, and instead you've got this huge pouch of skin down at the bottom. And I think one thing I've personally struggled with is I wanted to get to 170 pounds, and I've gotten really close, but I get a lot of feedback from my friends and even people on Instagram that are like, you have so much skin, you need to let that pipe dream go at least until you have skin removal, because you just put in the work, and I personally feel like I still have so much fat on my body, and I know logically that it's skin. A lot of it is just skin, but it still pushes me to want to lose more weight, even when my surgeons, my doctors, my plastic surgeons I've consulted with tell me it's skin, girlfriend. You're in a good place.
Yeah.
It's such a mental struggle to just want to wake up and feel like you have the body that you've worked for.
Yeah, and I think, with the skin and the skin removal, a lot of people, what they don't realize is that, there are certain people that, when they have the loose skin, like there are times like you're saying where that actually affects your daily actions. Like, there are some people that get into pain from this loose skin. And so, I would, like you mentioned that you were consulting with some plastic surgeons. Is that something that's on the roadmap to have some of the skin removed?
Absolutely. Yeah. I had, actually my last consult that I've had was early March, obviously before things got too crazy. And, my goal is to start that plastics journey, and start getting some of it off, because they'll actually tell you, which is crazy to me, that you'll lose more weight after the plastics a lot of times, because it gives you that extra push that you can actually see your work. You can actually see the transformation. I've hit a point in my journey where even when I lose 10-ish pounds, I don't see a ton of change because of the skin. And, whereas other people, you're not fighting for abs at this point. You're just fighting for fat loss you can't really see too much of. But yeah, my goal was to hopefully either have something scheduled by the end of the year, or at least be on a track to start early next year. And not sure how COVID's going to change that. I know elective surgeries have all been canceled for the past few weeks, and so obviously that their schedules are going to be pretty hectic. But I'm very lucky. It's not something that really bothers me, and I'm not in a super big rush. My ultimate goal I think a lot of people are getting, plastics before they've really kept the lifestyle change. And my ultimate goal is to be in a place where I know I'm not going to gain the weight back before I go spend a bunch of money on surgery.
Right. And you feel pretty comfortable, mentally, or at least that you're getting close to that point where you feel like, I feel like I'm in a good spot. I mean, I know you mentioned you gained a little bit back, but I think a lot of people have gained, a little, like 5-10 pounds just because of all the craziness going on. But other than, the COVID and all that, you feel like you're in a good spot mentally at this moment?
I do. I feel like my hardest thing to overcome was that I thought that I needed to wait to hit that, 170 before I could start, quote unquote, maintaining. And I've been really pushing for that number for so many months now that it finally hit me that I was maintaining. I was actually losing a little, very slowly, but I was theoretically maintaining at about, between 180 and 190 for the past 6 months. And that's what they look for. They want to know that you're at a weight that you're keeping, you're not gaining and losing and gaining and losing. And so it finally just hit me at that last plastic consult of, wow, I'm here. Like this can happen.
Well, I mean, let's do the math here for the folks listening at home that hopefully are paying attention. You were at just north of 400. So I think you said 410, 411. You're talking about 180 to 190. That's over 200 pounds. I want people to let that sink in for a minute. Over 200 pounds. That is phenomenal. If you were here right now, I would fist bump you. That is just phenomenal.
Thank you. Yeah, it was definitely, a struggle. It was not easy. It's not easy. And I suffer from a lot of, I feel the need to comment on this. I suffer from a lot of, I think, post-weight loss surgery guilt, because I made such great changes in my lifestyle of, being more active, of really focusing on healthy food, that sometimes I'll sit here and I'll go, why couldn't I do it on my own? Why
Sure.
couldn't I do it without the weight loss surgery? Why couldn't I just make these changes before? And I just want to say that if it hadn't been for the weight loss surgery, I don't think I would have been that successful. I definitely wouldn't have lost 200 pounds as quickly as I did. And I know that it's helped me with long-term success, but as someone that has failed so many times before, it was the tool I needed to, to get me here. And I just want to put that plug in for anybody who has, either yo-yoing or has just tried and is adamant that that's not the way. You can still have weight loss surgery and implement all of the changes and live a healthy lifestyle. It's not the easy way out, and you're still going to work your ass off. I'm not sure if I can say that on here, but
no, you're totally fine.
you're gonna put the work in, and you're gonna be successful. I don't want to say you're gonna be successful regardless, but you're gonna be successful based on how you put the work in, surgery or not. So, if it's a tool that you need, take advantage of it.
Definitely. I think that, the feelings that you had on that are totally natural to feel the guilt, like, wow, yeah, why couldn't I have done that on my own? But it's like, look, these things, they're not the cheat codes. They are absolutely tools. And if that's the right tool for the project you're working on, you got to go with it. I mean, obviously consult the doctor with your particular situation, your particular medical history and body and all that. But if that's what they say, like, hey, I looked at your stuff and I really think this is the way, then you got to look into it. It's not something to run and hide from.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that was, scared me right on the path, seeing that 411 and going, God, where am I going to be at a year from now? If I don't take crazy steps now. And I took the leap, and I'm so glad that I did. Because obviously I'm living a completely different life now.
Definitely. Now, one of the things I like to do as far as when I wrap up the podcast here, I always like to ask about future goals. Now, I know obviously with the virus going on, it's everything's a little bit different, but I mean, in a perfect world, the next 3 to 5 years, what are some of the goals, weight loss and even not weight loss stuff that perhaps that you're working on? These could also be things that are now maybe not indirectly weight loss related, but like things that you could do now as a result because you've lost the weight. Like, what are some of the things that you're working on?
I think a big part of my journey moving forward is definitely more focused on the mental, that self-love, that self-confidence, which isn't and shouldn't be tied into your weight. I see so many men and women who are so in love with themselves at whatever weight they are, and I'm envious. I want to have that. I want to take that mental journey of falling in love with myself, and all my flaws and all of my great things that I am. So I know that's a big part of me for right now, is definitely moving in that direction. From a fitness standpoint, I am dying to be like a fit guy. Like, I want to not only, have lost this weight and be, quote unquote healthy. I really want to take it to the next level. I want to build muscle. I want to be strong. I want to be fit. I want to be, I want to say that at 22, I was on the brink of death at 411 pounds, and at 70, I can still, ride my bike and keep up with, grandkids, great grandkids, whatever. So I think that's really my next goal, is to really focus on the fitness part of it, and, making my body the most healthy version it can be.
I love that. And before we go, one of the things that brings so many people to this podcast, that brings us all together, is the Instagram community. I guess the final question is, before you tell me where people can go and find you, is how did you get on there in terms of sharing your journey on Instagram for the weight loss?
Yeah, if you were to scroll all the way to the back of my page, you would actually see I started the page right at the beginning of my 2-month diet with my primary. So I came across weight loss pages on my first leg of my journey. And that's actually what motivated me to have weight loss surgery myself, and to start asking those questions. I really just, you've heard my background. I work in communications. I've always been a journaler, a diary person. And I just wanted to share my story with everyone else, and show them that you're not alone and you're not struggling alone. And never thought that I would have made so many amazing friends and had such a fantastic support system to lean on, and to provide insight to. It's really, I direct everybody there. I think I have more friends on there than I do in real life.
True story. Well, I think you tell your story so well. Tell the people where on Instagram they can find you.
So you can find me at Subtracting Shelby on Instagram, and please give me a follow and shoot me a DM, and let's be friends, because you can't have enough friends, especially in times like this.
I know, we all need something. It's like I'm telling everybody, come on, let's do a podcast. It'd be a great way to have a nice long conversation. And God knows we got nothing else going on right now other than, obviously some work and stuff, but we're at home a lot more often. And Shelby, I really wanted to tell you, just thank you again so much for your time and sharing your story with me and the listeners here on the podcast. I really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely, Gary. It's been a true pleasure to chit chat with you. And I'm really grateful you invited me on.
Thank you so much, and I will talk to you soon.
Yep, sounds great.
All right, bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Wow, what a story. What a woman. She was awesome. And thank you guys so much for listening to the show. Again, head over to her Instagram at Subtracting Shelby and check her out if you haven't already done so. Like, seriously, stop what you're doing. Go follow her right now. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here, but let me just tell you something really quick before I go. If you're listening to me on an Apple device, if you're getting value from the show, if you like the show, head over and leave a review. I know all the podcasters ask for it. It's kind of like old hat by now, but it really does make a difference. So if you're somebody that's listening to the show week in, week out, do me a solid and leave a review. Tell people why they should check out the show, what it does for you, etc., etc. It's going to help out this show tremendously. That's going to do it for me for this week. Thank you guys so much for listening to the Gary Cantrell podcast, and I'll talk to you again very soon.